Hi, this is Gary Jordan for Natural Law for North America, and today I want to start a couple of videos dealing with um, the different roles that are used as tools in natural law courts and hearings. And the reason for that is, is that many of the old families that have ruled Earth, ruled humanity for thousands of years are apparently deciding they no longer have the ability to rule. For whatever reason, they feel that they are just so tired of it, or they're becoming embarrassed by some of the extreme shenanigans that we see, like, say, in the Western monarchs. The Queen of England and her brood being a good example of that. The Western aristocrats in the United States, and it's pretty crazy. So, and the fiat currencies and all the other stuff, apparently it is going down. But apparently there was a license by the ruling families to make money. So I'm going to go over with the different positions, because we'll need to have healing trials for those individuals of the old families that decide they want to express their, not just express their apologies, but go through a healing process. That healing process would not just be for the victims, that would be you and me, but would also be for the criminals themselves, or those that have been born into criminal families, which would be very, I would imagine, traumatic. So I personally picture thousands of natural law-based trials and hearings that need to be public for that purpose. Then over time those will die down, and we'll have regular mundane everyday kind of trials. So today I'm going to start with the judge. And before I get any further, each community, when you set up your community, it would be advisable and wise to set up and talk about what kind of a system you want to have. Because natural law, there is no hard and fast rule about how you do things. There is a very broad, do no harm, the maxims of love. You know, every creature has a living system has a right to freedom. Every living system has a right to be protected. And that kind of really basic stuff. So you really need to think about whether you want trials by juries, trials with a single judge without a jury, or trials that have one or more, two or more judges. And that will depend on your size, depend on a lot of stuff. So I'm going to start today with the judge. And I'm going to first compare a natural law judges, what they do and don't do, with the current corporate system, or systems I should say. So we have common law, English Roman law, maritime admiralty law, all that. And the second part I'm going to describe briefly using three different setups that are possible to show what the role of a judge is. And videos, upcoming videos, I'll go on the prosecution, defense, and on grand juries. So let's get at it. When we think of a judge, and I include magistrates in that capacity, we think of someone that's gone to years of law school, that has a bar association license, that may be elected or may be appointed by the government in the area in which they're presiding. They are either a lower court or a higher court, as well as lots of specialties. For example, in natural law, there is no crime unless there's a victim. So most of the traffic court cases, hearings, and of course judgeships will be pretty much out of business because it's mostly about tickets, fines, violation of rules and regulations set up by an external force called the state. Same thing with marriages. You don't go to a judge now. You go to a judge to get married. You don't need a judge. It's a permission slip, and you do not require a permission slip to establish a relationship. You may wish to have a ceremony. Your spiritual elders of your community, your ceremonial leaders, can perform ceremonies to celebrate this, but there is no need for a permission slip, blood tests, and all the other stuff, so the state can control the breeding, which is basically what it amounts to. So there will be no need for those. Limited need for divorce cases, especially involving children, and joint custodianship of personal properties. And of course, a lot of the stuff that, there's no appeals courts, so a lot of the number would go down drastically. So, if there is a victim and there is a crime, you take it before a judge. You find someone you trust to be a judge. Anybody can be a judge. You're not required to have license. You're not required to have so many years of law school or high school or even high school. If the community feels you're wise, feels you are trustworthy, that you'll be fair and impartial and look at the evidence, you could be a judge. Simple as that. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're a boy or a girl, black or white, Latino or Native American. It makes no difference. So when that does happen, what is the judge's responsibility? Well, first of all, a judge runs the court. It's a temporary case-by-case thing, and when he's not busy, when he's not on a specific case, he's not a judge. He does his normal stuff. But when on the case, he's in charge of making sure everything flows fine. He works with the prosecutor and the defendant and other involved parties to arrange a date for a hearing to be held, a date and place where everybody can agree to. Then when the case happens, he listens to the arguments for what happened. Now, if you have a jury, and you don't have to, but if you have a jury, the first part of a case is to determine the guilt or innocence of an accused person or persons that have caused harm. If you choose to have a jury, the jury is responsible for that phase. The judge, in this case, makes sure everything works together, calls the prosecutor, and then they bring their witnesses and testimony, and just make sure it runs smoothly, so that the jury can hear all the evidence, not just selective as we now do. Once the verdict has been reached and there's a guilty, then usually in a jury type trial, you have the judge works then on the second phase, which is the designing of a restorative remediation program, set of actions that the defendant can take to address the harm that he or she has caused. And that's usually the judge's job. Now, in a jury trial, the judge does have the option, once he's decided on something, to have the jury vote to see how well it's going to, since usually the jury is made up of members of the community. So they would be affected by whatever the judge chooses. So that would be with a jury. Now, you do have two other kinds of setups, basic types. There is the trial by a single judge. If you have a really small community, this might be the option you go. In which case, the judge is responsible for all phases. He or she would have to look at the evidence presented by both sides and any interested parties that may wish to, I should say both sides for the determination of guilt or innocence, whether that person being accused is in fact has caused the harm. The next phase, he or she is also in charge of determining and working with the prosecution and defense, along with other affected parties of a community or neighboring communities, what remediation is required to bring restitution and healing to the case. The third version, and I take this from Somalia, when I first heard about the Somalian version of natural law practices last year. They had an interesting version. They have a situation set up where a judge is assigned to a child from birth. And as that child grows up, that child is taught and trained by, how to handle preventatively to prevent crime. They have a system where there are two or more judges. Usually one of the judges will be from the defense, would be the one that knows the child, knows the person from the time he was or she was a child. In their case, it's a he because of the Islamic rules, but it doesn't have to be. They have another judge that represents the community, represents the plaintiff, and those two judges interact in the determination of the guilt, as well as restoration based on their rules and their customs. And if they feel the need for it, because maybe it affects an outside community, they'll bring in a judge from, those two judges will bring in an outside judge from another community, another band. They have a whole series of sizes for their bands because they're very oriented towards that. So those are the three possibilities, basic possibilities. You have trial by jury and a judge, trial by one single judge, a trial by two or more judges with no jury. Now, another role that a judge can play, as mentioned with the Somalian case, is as educator. Someone that has been chosen to be a judge in natural law society or community often has the responsibility of teaching the next generation about natural law, about the tribal customary laws of their community that are laid on top of the foundation of natural law. And so those are the things you might want to know about judges in a natural law society, which we are moving towards. So have yourself a great day. Bye-bye.